Happy New Year from Scotland for everybody. Wishing you all the best for 2021 and beyond. This first episode, I'm joined with Crystal Tyme from YouTube, the astrologer that joined us just at the end of 2020. And I thought this would be a nice way to begin our year and share some interesting insight as I close the year, sharing some other insights. So I hope you enjoy today's episode and I hope you stay tuned. It is a little bit of a long one, but there's some really valuable information in it, and I think it's well worth the time, perhaps even sharing it and leaving us some comments and things. Wishing you all the best, and see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to John with All for Synchronicity. The titles that was out, and this is yesterday, my time, 10 p.m. His video, Iran evacuates commanders from Iraq. Now if I scroll up a little bit more, he did another one. There's another one down the way as well. Here we go. Who really runs the White House? Full clip interview in his video before. Asteroid to impact the Bermuda Triangle?
Oh, yeah. I saw that, yeah.
And then the one that you were mentioning, Israel ready to use heart-stopping weapon on Iraq.
Yeah, there has to be some, because in prophecy there has to be a war there, even if it's just one day. That's really what you have to, that's a sign that we're like right at the end times per se. So, but it looks like it's heating up. And then I saw a headline in Washington Times saying that the Iranian president wants to kill Trump. So I was like, well, if somebody kills him, like, fake kills him or whatever, makes it look like he got killed, then it would start a war over there. Right?
Yeah. And the last title, which is today, UK time, 2 p.m.-ish, he released a video, Trump followers, the advice of the Joint Chiefs on Iran. So it sounds like the puppet show is beginning.
Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, now I've got a message from here. Okay, so, it looks like it's all kind of playing out. So I'm kind of like, okay, this is, and I really do predict that something's going to happen to Trump at this rally on the 4th. And then that's in Dalton, which has to do with where most of the artifacts of the Civil War are, because it was a big Civil War town. So I think that they're trying to kind of create this kind of thing like Caesar, like they're repeating the Caesar's timeline, which created 3.5 years of civil war afterwards. So yeah, crazy.
I've clicked record, but not that we've said it. It was just because it started with good stuff.
Okay, good.
But we can clip it. I don't mind reclipping bits.
Okay, so that, because I originally I always thought I knew it all tied into Odin, right? Because the Tree of Life ties into Christmas, right? And the whole thing with the red and white muscaria, Amanita muscaria mushroom. So right, and this is a Christmas ornament that they use in Europe, and so I knew it tied into Christmas, but so that's why I really thought all this was going to go down Christmas. But then when as Christmas was coming, I didn't feel it happening. I was kind of like, well, nothing really seems to be showing that it's going to happen. So I kind of was like, oh, well, I guess I was off. I just, it's not, they're not using the prophecy that I was uncovering. So I was kind of like, okay. But then for some reason, I went and did a little video in my Sugar Shack, and then I came back and I tried to upload the video and a picture of my face I had taken, and it went onto my desktop. And I was like, how did the picture go on my desktop? I still don't know how to get it off. I still don't know where the other picture went. But the point was, the next morning when I opened up the computer, I have these like 3 little eggs in a nest on my computer, and it was right on my third eye. And I saw that as a kind of like a symbol to say, you need to keep searching. So I was like, okay, well, I got to look into Odin more. So I started looking into Odin more. And I saw that January 6th was the original day for Odin's wild hunt. So this is the day that Odin always separated the souls. It wasn't Christmas Day, even though Odin, ends up being Santa Claus, right? That's how, he's the Grim Reaper, but he's also I think how they pronounce it. There's a way they pronounce it in Europe, but Santa Claus, I think it is. But it's all Odin. So I was like, oh my God, it's January 6th. So then I started researching about January 6th, and there was tons of different festivals on January 6th, all to do really with Ascension. It's like one of them is called the festival for the ship of Isis. I did it in my last video. It's all there. The terminology they use. Oops, sorry. For the how they describe the festival. It's in some Greek language, like pronunciation. I can't remember it, but it's all really tying into the ship again. Okay, so the ship is really part of the harvest, right? This is the Carina ship, and this is why they've named the Carina ventilators for COVID. There's ventilators named Carina. We have a Carina in our body, in our trachea, which divides the left and right with a wall. How ironic is that? And then we also have a Carina in our bladder, which I do believe all ties into Lucifer and phosphorus, right? Because that's where phosphorus comes from, is from urine. So this all ties into Venus, and that she's the bringer of light, right? So this is all tying into Lucifer. So, and which is back to Odin, So I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. So it's all these festivals that were on this January 6th day. I started looking at all the goddesses of these festivals. One's called Serona. The other one's, I think it's Persephina.
All for Synchronicity Discord, configured for the community as an interaction hub, created to allow users to receive notifications from YouTube video uploads as a prevention from the Screw YouTube's shadow bans. Furthermore, it has other interactions such as community members interacting, posting videos with each other. For users that's new to All for Synchronicity Discord, you can allocate a role by clicking one of these emojis at the bottom here. There is instructions in the welcome channel for anyone joining. And once you've done this, you'll gain access to Synchronist member channels where you can meet other members and see their interactions on a daily basis. Discord provides users with voice channels which allow other members to connect with each other and interact on a voice basis. You can even share content such as screens and many other features. All members are welcome. If you wish to join Discord or All for Synchronicity Discord, click the link in the description below.
Okay, so one's called Persephina, which ties into Persephone. These are all goddesses, but when you go and Google them on, pull them up on Stellarium, they're all on the head of the Virgin Mary, Virgo, right now. So all these goddesses that tie into this January 6th festival, all three cultures are all on, this relevant place, which is where George Washington, when he was building Washington, D.C., used the grid of the Spring Triangle, which would incorporate the whole of the Virgin Mary. Okay, so which is Virgo. And this I find really fascinating because the Spring Triangle goes up to Arcturus, which is in Boots. Then it comes down to, which supposedly in the month of August, this kind of goes over top of Washington, D.C. in the sky. And this is why they made it like this. And this star, Arcturus, is part of those 15 stars that the occult use. I think they're called Bohemian stars. And this star is reference to the Northern King, the King of the North. Okay, so we see this in the Game of Thrones, right? The King of the North. He's behind. Yeah, he's behind the ice wall. Yeah, the North Pole, Santa, the whole thing. Okay, so that's the White House. So that star represents the White House, and Trump did put on his desktop, on his desk one day in a meeting, he had the poster of Game of Thrones, right? And winter is coming. This is what Biden says. Okay, winter, the dark winter is coming, and then Trump said, during the elections, no. What did he say? No, the light winter. No, the light's coming, I think he said, and when he responded to that. But Biden definitely said the dark winter is coming. Okay, so then the other star on that spring triangle is Spica. And Spica is on the left side of Virgo. In her left hand, it's right on where she holds the myrrh. Well, the myrrh is what one of the three wise men, the three magi, the three astrologers gave to baby Jesus on January 6th. Okay, so it represents birth of Jesus. It also represents the death because they used it for his embalming. Okay, so it has a polarity. Now, the other star in the spring triangle, that would be, okay, so that star, Spica, is over the obelisk, which I said, and if you listen to our last interview and also some of my videos, that it's the tree of life. It's, the whole obelisk represents the tree of life. It ties into Sigillaria tree, the original tree on the planet. That was moss, and it looks like an obelisk. It's just a big straight stalk, and it's made out of moss. Okay, propagates by spores. This is the original tree of life, and then they kind of changed it to the mushroom. Okay, so this kind of, because they morphed it into something that's around here right now. This other tree isn't here, but it was called Sigillaria tree, and that's the last day of Saturnalia, which would be December 23rd. Okay, so that's why I thought it was all going to happen around that time. But then I was like, oh, I didn't know about this triangle that they created over Washington, D.C. I found that on a Freemason historical video. So I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. So that's tying into the Nectar of the Gods, which is the reflecting pool beside the Washington Monument. So that's the Spica star. Now the other star in the triangle is Regulus, which is on the shoulder of Leo. And that's what the Sphinx aligns to, right? And that star is originally named, it's named Regulus for Raphael, the angel Raphael of the Four Horsemen. But the other thing that's interesting is that star is known as Rex. Okay, now Rex means king. It also means the alchemy of Venus and Mercury, which I spoke about before. It's about, your heart and your mind transmutating. It's the true hermaphrodite. Okay, so that's alchemy, and that's over top of the Capitol building. Okay, so we have the three important pieces in Washington, D.C., all under this spring triangle. But what's really crazy is that the original lion in the sky was way bigger than what we have now. Okay, in Arabic astrology, it was massive. It went from this whole triangle. It was all part of this whole triangle. It wasn't like, Boots and, being Virgo and Leo. It was one big giant lion that went from Virgo up to Boots, all the way through Leo, all the way through Cancer, which was the nose of the lion, which is the one constellation that rules by the moon, right? And then it went into Gemini, and it's paw. They say it's paw. But when you go in, you can find the picture of it on Google. If you Google it, it's called the Assad lion. Okay, and what's nuts is the Assad. We got his name is Assad, the Syrian president, right? That they changed their name to Assad. That wasn't his original family name. It was changed. It was changed to Assad, which means the great lion. Okay, and like I explained before, we're in the fixed cross. It's ruled by Mars and Leo, so the Sun and Mars. Okay, this is what the fixed cross. This is the realm we live in. It's male dominant, ruled. The sun is on its proper pillar of Freemasonry. There's two pillars. One's the sun pillar, one's the moon pillar. But Leo is the only constellation that rules the sun, and it's on its proper place on the fixed cross. Okay, so it's all about the lion. It's all about the Lion King. Okay, so what's fascinating is that on the full moon that we had on the, I think it was 29th, right? The moon was on the star in Gemini. It's called Mebsuta, and that's an Arabic name. Okay. And so when I checked out this big giant lion, well, lo and behold, it's the claw of the lion. Okay. And okay, so we have the full moon on, it's called the cold moon on December 29th. But I know, because I've checked it out, that when they took the Twin Towers down, that's where the moon was, on that star. Okay. And then, when I started doing research on that, that all ties into a Liberty ship that the USS Navy had. It wasn't its original name. It was Thomas um, McGinnery or something, that was the original name of the ship. But then they changed it to Mebsuta. And then they changed it back to its original name. And it's all tied to Pearl Harbor, this ship. And it was so it all ties into liberty, and
weren't they saying they were trying to make something of like another Pearl Harbor? I know they call 9/11 the next Pearl Harbor, but they were suggesting that this COVID is the next Pearl Harbor that's sharing.
I think so, because so we know the Pearl. Okay, I spoke to you about that. The Pearl is the one star in the middle of the Corona Borealis constellation. Okay, it's called a Flecka, and this all ties into Gnosis. It all ties into the Nautilus in in the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It all ties into the Meissner effect for ascension. It's basically your body turns into a superconductor. You have to turn into it like a pearl. Okay, so your body has to have a shield, and your shield is the mother of pearl around you. And of course, this ties into Julius Caesar as well. Okay, because he gave his mistress a pearl, and her son Marcus Brutus killed Julius Caesar with 23 stabs, and then Rome fell, and there was 3.5 years of civil war. Okay, so it's all repeating history. Okay. And then it's, get off my neck. Well, this Corona Borealis constellation that happens to be on top of Ophiuchus, or just on the top of the snake of Ophiuchus, it's really the crown that you want to wear. There's another Corona crown in the sky, which is the symbol of the UN. It's the laurel wreath. It's on the chest of Sagittarius at the Golden Gate. And guess what? We have Niobe, the goddess there, who ends up turning to stone. And she's happens to be on that crown. Okay, so I'm just like, okay, all the players of the mythology are all in their right locations. And then, so I'm really convinced that something's going to happen to Trump on December 4th. I thought it was going to be December 2nd, because the moon is back in the lion's mouth on December 2nd, where it was on December 5th, because that is when Trump said, "I'm going to get killed." That was his last rally he did, and he said, "I'm going to get killed." And when that happened, the moon was in the lion's mouth. Well, the moon's in the lion's mouth again. Was there yesterday? Okay, but in the 17th letter post, we're not supposed to say the letter. There was a post that said 2 days off. Okay. There's also a book written by Michael Flynn, not the real Michael Flynn, but another Michael Flynn, which is a coincidence, named In the Lion's Mouth. And this book is all about civil war, and also to do with the galactic civil war. So it's a fictional book, but just the fact that the title and the author's name is Michael Flynn. And then so 2 days out, I was like, okay, where's 2 days out? Where's the moon? Oh my God, guess where the moon is 2 days off of yesterday? It's on the Ascension star in Virgo, Zabijava. which is right in the center of the triangle that they created for Washington, D.C. Okay. So, and all the goddesses are there on Virgo's head, right around this star right now. That's where they all are. So I'm kind of like, I'm convinced that they're going to do something to Trump on the 4th at this rally in Dalton.
And then just
okay, so it's also called the Enchanted Land. Sorry?
And just to share in a thought, there's this YouTube channel called Farsight Institute. They do remote viewing. And one of the interesting things that they did was the Time Cross project. And I know I'm going off on one, but hang on. The Time Cross was they were remote viewing into the future headlines or events which could occur in the world. And they stopped it prior to this month. They were saying, they're taking a short holiday, blah, blah, blah. And one of the last predictions that they had in the Time Cross was security forces running to aid, protect, evade kind of a close encounter. And they were like, well, this could be any political clues in the events.
Well, it's just weird with this asteroid coming into Bermuda. And then now, for one freaky reason, I opened up my calendar book, my agenda book, and I just wanted to look, January 4th. And it had, a little passage with it. And I was like, what's that? And it's in French, being that I'm in Canada. And it said, Lendemain de jour de l'année. So which means lendemain means the day after. Okay. And it also means the tenderloin. Okay, so tenderloin. Okay, it's part of your back. Okay, so I was like, okay, the day after, and then I was like, oh my God, there's a movie, The Day After Tomorrow, where this big catastrophe happens in New York City, and on the East Coast, and everything turns into a big giant ice age. So I'm just like, oh, are you kidding me? And it's like I think a big wave comes and takes out New York City. So, and then Trump had put those big giant gates up. I don't know if you ever remember that. Like when he got elected, he made these big, massive floodgates in the New York City. Huge, they're massive. And it stops water coming into New York in case of some catastrophe. I was just like, when he did that, I was like, maybe that ties into the Day After movie. And then now the January 4th is called The Day After. Just Yes, I know. It's like, it's when they say that the whole world is like gonna shift and the whole poles are gonna shift. I don't know. Freaking us out.
Yeah, trying to freak out. But when I was with a corporation, the headquarters building was actually next to a harbour front. And I remember at some point in my 20s, a big meeting which was then chaired out to each division. And they were speaking about flood disasters. They even went as far as, where would we meet if our building was flooded? And it's like, well, if companies are preparing at that stage, it kind of does make the 2045 prediction map, and I shouldn't say prediction, but a possibility. But yeah, it's maybe a way of getting people to spend money in places that we really don't need to spend money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and a lot of you start to think, if we're the manifestors of this realm and we're creating as we go, and all they have to do is convince us it's going one way or the other. Which is really, I could be saying I'm doing that as well. I'm convincing people that something's going to happen to Trump or da 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 da. But I don't see it as nefarious. I see it as like it's all prophecy and there's a door opening. So you kind of want the prophecy to act out, because then it means that there's a way for us souls that can see through the illusion to be able to be free. Okay. And that I do believe we get this like 1,000 years break. It's probably not 1,000 years of this time, the same, time frame, but we get a break and then we come back and we play the whole game all over again. I do believe that. I think we just constantly recycle back here. Sometimes we recycle back with memory. And sometimes if you've gotten to, being the initiate and gotten through the stages of seeing through the illusion, then you get to recycle back with memory. That's what I see the whole game as. Now, whether that's 100% true, I don't know, but it makes sense to me. And I do believe somehow, we're harvested for DNA or phosphorus or whatever. I don't know, but all the symbolism's there. Once you know, yeah, it's all there. Like this, it's all on music videos. It's crazy. I just listened to a music song, "The Whole of the Moon." Well, he talks about, I see the crescent and you see the whole of the moon. It's really, the crescent is the Cheshire crescent. It's called the wet moon, but it's also known as the Cheshire moon, which happens in the wintertime. It comes up over the horizon and it's like the smiling cat. And when that's all ties into the Cheshire charge, which happens to be your DNA and your protein swapping polarities. Okay, so this is what you want to be, the Cheshire cat. You want to be here, but be invisible and have, my reality is different than your reality. That's what the Cheshire cat says. And you're no longer part of the chaos. So yeah. And so then I mentioned this to William Moon today when he posted a picture of the phoenix, because I've been saying you have to be the phoenix flying out of the fixed cross. The fixed cross is collapsing. The Lion King cross is collapsing. They have to. The fate of the Lion King, we all know, right? It's in the Walt Disney. Walt Disney was a Mason. The Lion King dies. Okay, so, and what's crazy is, then I was like, well, if this really happens, if something does happen to Trump, I'm going to get a flood of people saying, so what time is it happening on the 6th? So I was like, if I get the prediction right? So then I was like, how am I going to figure out the time that it's happening in the different time zones, right? So I was like, there has to be a way to know. So it was like, back on Stellarium, there's these grids on Stellarium down at the bottom. You can click on them. One's the equatorial grid, just gives you the North Pole and the South Pole. And it kind of, it's just like a sphere. It's all grid lined. And at the top, there's a hole. At the bottom, there's a hole, right? A round circle. It's like a beautiful sphere. Okay. So then there's also this thing called azimuthal grid. And I didn't really understand how they got that grid, but it has to do, I researched it after, it has to do where you're standing on the planet and your perception of where you're standing. This is what creates the grid. Okay, so if that's the case, well, its grid can be, different. It can, it can shift and move around. The other one can't. Okay, so I'm kind of like, okay, so let's play around with these two grids. So I clicked them up together. And I wanted to see if there was a time where the two poles, being like a portal kind of on the sphere, would align to mythology somehow on Greenwich timeline, like in Europe timeline, and with the United States, because there has to be a matching. Like it has to, if it's going to happen at a certain time, the imagery in those portals have to be significant to mythology on the European, where this grid lines up, and it also has to be 5 hours later lining up to North America timeline. Well, lo and behold, I found it. And I kind of just was like, I don't believe this is really, happening, because I matched the grids, okay? So that in this portal, it creates an X. Okay, so this means the two grids have to be like in alignment, okay, to create this beautiful circle with this X in the center of it. And when I did this, yeah, it's fascinating. And what ended up happening was in Europe, we get Neptune, the planet Neptune, on the tail of Cetus. Okay, so in our last chat, like I was going on and on and on about Mobius strip, how to jump timelines, all ties into Moby Dick's story. And the Moby Dick is really Cetus in the sky, which is really Odin's horse, right? Right. So, and I said, that's where Baron Trump's born. Okay. And that's why I thought they were going to do it on the winter solstice, because that's when, the moon was on the tail of the whale. I was like, okay, something has to happen with the tail of the whale. But oh no, see, they were really smart. They did it through the grids. Okay, so that's the timeline if it does happen. Okay, so on the the 23rd hour, well, 10 minutes before midnight, because I knew it had to be around midnight because of Cinderella and Walt Disney's depiction of Cinderella and the world, everything changing at around midnight, the strike of midnight. So I knew that it had to be around midnight. So on the European time, it's at 10 minutes to midnight, and the other side of the pole, like the portal, is on the Zavi-Java star, which is the ascension star. Okay, where the moon's going to be on Trump's rally on January 4th. So, and Zavi-Java is a really important star. Okay, so I was like, oh my God. Sorry?
And that's tomorrow, the 4th.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah. His rally tomorrow. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. If nothing happens, then I'm lost. I don't know what they're going to do. The only thing I found out last night, when I was really looking into the Epiphany, and what the Epiphany meant in all different religions, I did find, well, first of all, in some religions it means you take down your Christmas tree. Other religions it means you change the decorations on your Christmas tree to purple, green, and gold, which are the colors for ascension. So I was like, I do think, ascension is really tied to January 6th, being that it's Odin's wild hunt. But there's also the Epiphany or Christmas goes 40 days out, and it goes to February 2nd. They could use that as symbolism to that, just to knock us all off, like not so we don't know what's going on. Maybe they will. All I'm saying is that everything's aligning right now to the mythology. Whether it pans out, I don't know. We need a war in the Middle East, right? That's going to be the telltale sign, the war. Okay, that's all prophecy. Okay, so now let's see. Now that happens at midnight, well, 10 minutes before midnight, European time. Then at 1:54, which is about but almost 2 hours later, around 2 hours later, when I line these grids, it comes to the moon being on the harvest star of Virgo. And you got to understand, these grids, they could be anywhere in the sky. It's not just on the elliptical line where the planets normally go. These grids can shift all over. Okay, so the fact that it's on the harvest star, like at one hour right at midnight, it's on Zavi-Java, and then the next 2 hours later, it's on the harvest star in Virgo. Like, what's the chances of that happening? Like, that they align? Like, I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. Okay, so that's on the 7th, like the morning of the 7th would be the time where the harvest would happen. Okay, so like this says in the Bible, the believers go first. Okay, so they're not part of the chaos, and then the harvest happens. Okay, so that's the way this is all panning out in on the sky as well. So then 5 hours earlier, the time would be at 6:50, right, in the evening in North America on Eastern Standard Time. And I just did Eastern Standard. I didn't do anything else. I should maybe check Central Time. But Eastern Standard Time, we have this whole lining up on Centaurus, which is, you've got the word Taurus in there, which ties all to the Pleiades. But Centaurus was originally Chiron. Okay, Chiron is the key to, well, it looks like a key in alchemic symbols, and it represents Ophiuchus constellation, the 13th zodiac that nobody likes to talk about, which I do believe is the Freemason doorway.
And this is Chiron, the healer, right?
Yeah, he's the healer. Like you basically get a wound from him, like on your charts, if wherever Chiron is, like you get a wound, but you learn from the wound. Like you learn from what he's trying to teach you. Yeah, he's the healer. He's like Asclepius in a way. He's the healer. Yeah, exactly. So this is where he
comes round in your lifetime once or twice and says, "Hey, remember that one a decade ago you never healed from? Heal from it."
Yeah, exactly. He's the healer. So that's what's happening at the same time that in Europe, the grid is on Zavi-Java, the ascension star. So in Europe, it's on Zavi-Java, And then in New York, in Eastern Standard Time, it's on the healer, which ties to the doorway. Okay, so what's the chances? Like, it just blew my mind when I found this. And then on the other side of the sphere of the grid, it's on Andromeda. Okay, so she's the woman that is tied to a stone with a chain, and Perseus kills the beast, Sitis, and sets her free. Okay, and so she's a slave, but she's gonna be freed from being a slave. This is what the symbolism is in New York with these two grids. And then, of course, 2 hours later, is it 2 hours later? I'm trying to think now. Maybe it's not. Oh no, it has to be. I've got 1950. So that's this is like 10 to it's 10 to, I gotta make sure I got this right. But this was interesting. At 1950, it lines to Al Gore, the demon eye, which would be the harvesting. That eye is in Perseus. It's a star in Perseus, and Lupus is right in the center of the grid, which is the wolf, which Centaurus kills. Okay, that's the constellation Centaurus. He's holding the mad dog, and he's killing this wolf. Its name is Lupus constellation, and that's the exact same symbol that they use in the Game of Thrones. The wolf, right? The wolf head, and it says winter's coming. Okay, so I'm just kind of like, wow, this is crazy. If this is all true, if this, it would absolutely be amazing if it was all true. Like, if this is all going down this week, and if it doesn't, then it's just wait and see what happens. But it kind of has to happen because Trump's getting everybody to go to DC on January 6th. He's tweeting about it. He says he's going to be
rally.
There. Yeah, the big huge rally on January 6th, which is the day of Epiphany, which is the day of Odin's hunt, which would be the day of Ascension and the harvest. And he says, I'm going to be there. Oh, Odin's
and they're calling it the Wild Protest Rally. If you go to the website,
calling it?
Yeah,
no
if
way.
you check the website out, wildprotest.com, you can register your RSVP now.
Oh my God, the Wild Protest. And he says, I'm going to be there. Of course, and it kind of reminds me of this, of course, the Game of Thrones, the war, the big war that happens at the end. And also this is in the 100 show where they have to have this war, right? The one side believes they have to have the war. And then eventually, like, these extraterrestrial beings are watching the war and they're saying, look, you guys don't deserve ascension. You still fight each other, Like, if you're going to fight each other, you don't deserve to ascend. Like, you've lost your chance. And then, I think Octavia, she runs out and says, wait, this all ties into Julius Caesar too, Octavia. And she runs out and she says, you got to stop, and we got to love each other. We can't keep fighting each other. And then all the beings, they all ascend. Okay. So it's all about getting off the pillars. And just seeing the middle ground and not have hate for the other side. This is what it's all about. And it's just fascinating that they're tying it all into mythology. I just find that just blows my mind. But for me, it's like how they've done this. Like, it's so brilliant. And it's like, they've created this, through the the 17th letter movement and all this. But it's a bit of a psyop if you still believe that it's all about fighting. It's really about, it's a movie, which is what was said in those posts. It's a movie. You're watching characters play in a show. What's the movie for? It's the prize is your soul. As the prince said that, right? The war is in your mind. The prize is your soul. That's what it is.
It's always.
Yeah. So it's like, it's just to be able to have the ability to see it all, not just be on that, I'm right. What I believe in is right, and what you believe in is wrong. This is what puts you on the pillars. That's your ego. So you have to just kind of say, you can believe that, and I can believe this, but the goal is to get on the middle path where you see it's all an illusion, and then you can
I
find the
think as
door.
well, part of the illusion that the Masons play is they teach the two pillars. Two pillars is governance, and what they don't tell you is when you reach a level, it's three pillars, and the three pillars is strength, bravery, or strength, beauty, and something else. I need to click a button to look at it, but that I think is them actually twisting information through the process of while teaching others their tricks or their hidden mystery per se.
Yeah, but it has to be. I think you can only see it all as an illusion when you finally let go of wanting to be right. Okay, like I'm doing all this. I don't care if I'm wrong. Honestly, and I've said this on my channel. It is what it is. If I'm wrong, then I don't know. I'm lost. I don't know what's going on. But for me, it's like like at one point I had to like try to balance that because I was like, you must think like me. I was trying to get people to not hate Trump. I was trying to make people see Trump as a good guy. And then I was like, why do I need them to see them as a good guy or a bad guy? Or why do I need at one point? Because I believed he was the good guy. But then I started to realize, oh, this is all a psyop. Everything. Both sides are a psyop. Okay. So then when I did that, I realized I didn't have to be right anymore. I just had to be the observer. And I think that's the hardest part. And once you can get to that point, you don't really see anything of it being bad anymore because you're just like, it's just a game. It's a soul game. It's all for fun. It's all for fun.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is you saying that word there, the observer, that is the last chapter in my book.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
In your book?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the greatest thing I think, which people will not realize until a few more years, we just went through the line in the sand where everybody sees the eye in the God eye in each other. And I believe, and this might add in some of the ascension for yourself, I believe, as it's written, at one point in the Kali Luga turn or the Logos turn, the God in all is ignorant. They do not see the eye. And then when it reaches the mark, it rolls over. So everybody starts to recognize the divinity in each other. And thus the ignorance is less ignorant. And I believe, and this is just my thought, I think the trigon, Kepler's thing, was the mark in the sand where those start to ascend to the God eye, to recognize the divinity within. And I even think that the Masonic part, we were talking about the two pillars, the three pillars, I think the two pillar part plays into that. And the three pillar plays into a smaller level of consciousness. And I think what we're going to witness is countries start to turn and recognize the God eye, the divinity. And I wonder, and this is just me throwing it out there, but I wonder if that's what is occurring. And the people like what you're saying, they're playing the puppet show because maybe they're already there, like it says in the Bible. Those that's we'll go there first,
Yeah, exactly. I think there's like different places, like none of it's bad. Like if you want to be the Cheshire Cat and just be like, not really part of it all, that's your choice. And then if you want to be here fighting the civil war that they're going to kind of put everybody through, I do think for 3.5 years, then that's your choice. And then at the end of it, they'll set everybody free, and they say, wow, see, what did you learn from all that? And so it's, but I think everybody gets to choose which path they want to go on. And you can see that now, like after 4 years of Trump being in power, you can see that everybody's very set on how they see this all. And you cannot change anybody's opinion at this point. I don't think it's like, it's very hard to change people's concept of it, unless you really come at it. Like, that's why I try to come at it from the sky, because it's the only thing that's neutral, right? It's the only thing that's neutral on the whole world that we all look at, and there's no boundaries and there's no
I mean, everybody can look at Nancy Pelosi's face and see how frustrated she is with as she would say, the Trump administration, but really it's one individual, and it's like, she's got so attached. Either that or she's a bloody good actor.
Yeah, I think they're all acting. I really do. Because, you've seen, Trump's been at, Clinton's, well, vice versa, their weddings, and you see them all hanging out with their arms around each other. And even I've seen Trump hugging Obama, and they're all laughing. So I'm kind of just like, I don't know. I don't think you do that to people you hate. You know what I mean? So it's just, for me, I think it's all an illusion. Like even their roles that they're playing, because it's so over the top, and that's what got me to awaken. I was like, how can it be so dramatic that they hate this man that just got elected? Like from my point of view, I never listened to the news. I was just like, I just had no time for it. I was like doing my own thing, and I just saw it all as a merry-go-round. So when he got elected, and I saw the vile hatred towards him, which I grew up, I'm old enough to know that everybody loved Donald Trump. Back when I was a kid. He was on TV shows and sitcoms, and everybody loved him. So I was like, what the heck is going on? So that's what awakened me. But it was their acting. So which is all part of it. So yeah, I just find it all really fascinating, and it'll just be interesting to see, how it all plays out. This is the key. I just and I have to do more work on my grid thing, make sure my times are all aligned to the two. I don't know if I wrote it down wrong, or I have to look, but I'm going to do a video on it just to make sure it's all there. But I wanted to wait to post it until something, if something happened to Trump, because I was like, there's no point posting something if nothing happens to him, because I'm like, it's like, this is all part of the prophecy, in many religions, it's always the king dies. Osiris dies, and the Hugh god dies, and they always
King
it's always
Arthur.
that. Right? Yeah, King Arthur. Yeah, he's the
yeah.
king of the north. Yeah, exactly. They all die. So I'm kind of just like, yeah, it's crazy. It is really, really crazy.
And then,
Okay,
and
no,
just
I got the
to,
time wrong here.
Yeah, and just to
sorry.
invert this for the audience, for the fun of it, I think they'll actually enjoy the little prophecy guesses. So you're saying you've been reluctant to post it quite soon, but I think your viewers, the subscribers, even mine, they would enjoy just the story, the excitement of, hang on a minute, this is written in the sky,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I have to just double check my times, because I was like, I'm wondering if I'm off there on one of the times. So I need to just really get this down packed, because see how it all times. It's just trying to figure out the two timeline, like the two the 5 hours or whatever time change between the two continents. It's like yeah, because I have this down at 6:50. This is happening. Okay, but maybe it's this. Well, I'm wondering it's.
Of course, so if you're doing a time comparison for UK, we do that silly time change. So what they call it is
the daylight saving time.
Yes.
That's right. Okay, so this was what's weird. Okay, now maybe you can help me with this since you're there. Every time I go on Stellarium, it takes me to this near soul buoy. It's basically like a buoy out in the middle of the ocean. And it started doing this a couple of months ago. And every time when I pull up Stellarium, that's where it takes me. Okay. So I'm like, why does it keep taking me there? And I just, I just meditated on it, when I pull it up, I go, that's weird. So anyhow, so the other day it pulls up, and that's when I went to look at the grid. I didn't change the time back to, North America. I just left it there, and I looked at the grid, and it aligned to the Zavi Java star at close to midnight, and I went, what? But what I realized, like down in the ocean where this buoy is, there's these 3 islands, and one of them's called Ascension Island. Okay, and it has a triad with 2 other islands. It's Saint Helena and Ascension Island, and the other one's called something Chai Kupa or something, which is almost like that one's really cold because it's more close to the Arctic.
This wouldn't be somewhere in the ocean in front of Portugal type part, would it?
No, it's kind of like not Portugal, but close to Africa, just below Spain. Like if you go Spain and then you go down into the, the African Ocean there, or no, it'll be the Atlantic Ocean, all there. That's where it all is. These islands, okay, and they all have crazy mythology, like history. I mean, because this Ascension Island all ties into submarines, and this is weird. This all ties into the Hunt for Red October. This was a post, okay? Hunt for Red October. None of us knew what it meant. But then, of course, on Halloween, when the moon was on the Eye of the Beast, I think it was. Yeah, on the Eye of the Beast of Sittis. That's when Sean Connery died. Now, he was the captain of the Hunt for Red October movie. And when you go Google the Hunt for Red October movie and they talk about Sean Connery, it comes up that he's a combustible. The way they word it, it sounds like the captain's combustible. Okay, but it's I don't know. So it's just weird, and that is the front of the novel of Moby Dick, the more recent one, where there's a captain there, and it looks exactly like Trump or Lincoln, and half his body's combustible, and half isn't. Okay, and of course the right side is, the left side isn't. Okay, right side being intuition. So the crazy part is that this all ties in to Sean Connery, because when you go Google Sean Connery's death on Halloween, it keeps referring to him as being the lion. He was the lion of the James Bond. He was the lion. He was the king. He was the lion. And so it's all tying into it again. Okay. And I just find it really nuts, because they're tying James Bond into this, basically into this lion again. It's just interesting how they're doing it. But this island is about, in World War II, it tied into them being able to hunt submarines.
So just to help, I think there's a synchronicity here. I've shared a picture with you, and I might be wrong, but this islands, another video blogger, he's suggesting that this actually could be the Atlantis that sank, and there's tiny islands basically saying this was the mountain peaks of that island that sank. And I was just curious, as you were describing, is that the same place that you were pointing at?
No, it's not. I know I've looked into this area too. No, this where I'm at, it's like way down at the tip of Africa, but just below Morocco, like, because you know how Africa goes like big out, then it goes down skinnier. It's down straight underneath Spain. It's really straight underneath Spain. That's weird, Seville. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So it's just,
I just thought maybe there was another connection to the whole circle, possibly, and I was like, well, maybe you never know.
Yeah, I just find it weird that Stellarian keeps taking me there, and it just, there's Ascension Island. But the weird part about it is that's where the one island. It's like each island, these three islands represent the three fates, the three paths again. It's always the three fates, right? And it's Lachesis is the one that she's the one that cuts your length of your life. She decides how long you live. And then Clotha is the one that lets you ascend. And then I think the other one's named Antropos. She's the one that kills you. Okay, so these three things can happen to you when this time happens. You're either going to ascend, you're going to stay and fight, and you're just going to be, in this or in here, or you, in a way, die, and then you get recycled back. This is the three fates, and they're always deciding your path. But these three islands, their flags kind of have the symbolism for these three fates. One is the white bird flying. I think that's the Ascension one, the Ascension Island. And the other one where they had Napoleon. I don't know which Napoleon. I have to look into that. Somebody said to me, "Oh, there's three Napoleons." I didn't know. But that's where Napoleon got exiled to, was St. Helena Island. These are all these. And the other one is like frozen. And that's one of the paths. When you're frozen, you turn to a stone, right? It's just crazy. It's like I never realized the importance of Little Christmas, right? Which is the Epiphany. And we all sing this song, Little Christmas, and it's a popular carol. And I was I was listening to Judy Garland. She sings it in this movie, Meet Me in St. Louis. And I was like, St. Louis? Are you kidding me? That's the Silver Gate. That's the Silver Archway in the United States, that aligns to Washington and the Golden Gate. And I was like, that's where the two eclipses go through, right? So I know the Silver Gate is super important. It's also where Trump was born. Trump was born in the Silver Gate. It's the gate of Isis, okay? And he was born on the Crab Nebula, which is the very first recorded supernova ever in history in the 10th century, okay? And it has a frequency coming from there. And of course, the crab is Cancer. It's the only constellation ruled by the moon, and that's where the manger of Jesus is, called the Beehive Cluster. So it's like they're going to use Trump and make Trump be like a representation of Jesus ascending. Okay, I know this sounds absolutely nuts, but this is what's going down in my mind because of where he's born. He's born in the Silver Gate. And then this song that comes up in Judy Garland's show, she's like, and it's a little clip. You can go on YouTube, and she just sings the song. But right before she sings the song, she's talking to her little daughter. And her daughter says, Mom, why do we have to go? She goes, we have to go. We have to hurry. We have to leave. And she says, why? She goes, well, she says, we have to. And she says, but you can bring your doll, and you can bring your dolls, and you can bring your dead dolls too. But you can't bring the frozen statue men outside. And they look out the window, and there's all these frozen snowmen. And this is the symbolism, like if you get onto that timeline, you turn to stone, right? It's in the sky, like it's at the end of the rabbit hole in the sky, which is the Eridanus River. At the bottom's the clock, just like in Alice in Wonderland. Your little phoenix, which is your soul, flies away, and then right beside that is the stone head. You become the sculpture. You become the statue. Okay, this is why the movie Frozen. Okay, it's like you're frozen. You're frozen in time, like you're not going to make it. Okay, so it's all in that little clip in that movie. That movie was made in 1944. Okay. So they knew the timeline, well, obviously they've known the timeline forever, but they started programming it into the movies back then. So it's just like, it's hilarious. I find it all hilarious. But what I liked was, the dead dolls go too, because, for me, the whole reason I got on all this was because when I started hearing people talking about, we're going into 5D, and all these like starseed people, and we're all shifting, and I'm like, well, am I going to see my family there? Like that was the first question that came to my head was, well, if we're moving into 5D, do I get to see all my dead family? Because most of my family's passed. So I was just like, oh my God. And then when she said, oh, you get to bring your dead dolls too, I was like, oh, maybe I will get to see them. Oh my God, it's crazy. But I spoke to people that have taken like ayahuasca, like they've gone to these resorts and where you take ayahuasca, and I've just spoken to people, and they're like, yeah, you see everybody. Every single person that's ever been on this planet is there. Some people are like half visible, like they're only like, only half of them's there, but they're walking around. She says, you see everything. You see through the veil.
Well,
so
that reminds me on the interview, I think it was late last year or the beginning of this year, on London Real, and it was a researcher type guy. He's written heaps of books. He's been on ancient alien theories as well. I'm sure it's Graham something.
Graham Hancock.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
And he was speaking about his years of trying ayahuasca. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when they first started talking about it, I'm going, what are these guys all into drugs or something? But then when I started to understand the whole thing about the tree of life and the mushroom, and it all ties into, the whole tree of life, and what the shamanic healers used to do was go into these caves, and then they would take the mushroom, and then they would get their tribes people to drink their urine, because it's like it's because with the urine, it has phosphorus in it, so it helps activate DNA. And I guess maybe it's a little less strong. So only the shaman could handle the big, heavy like hit of the mushroom. But they would go into the caves and be in the dark, which also you don't even have to take anything. Just being in a dark room for 10 days, you can go on these resorts and you can get into the same mind state of taking the same thing as taking mushrooms or ayahuasca just by being in the dark for 10 days.
There's another one for you then. Dark room. One of the universities in America, I can't remember which one, they were doing tests with a dark room, and what they did is they would let one person go in at a time, a chair in the middle of the room or something you could sit on like a cushion, and they would go in there and they'd see how long they could stay there before their sense deprivation had made them into a state they didn't enjoy or felt unpleasant, and then they would vacate the room. And the longest time anybody was able to stay in the room in the complete set of darkness, shut off all sensory deprivation, all that stuff, was the teacher. And he managed to accumulate close to 30 minutes. Close to.
How many days?
30 minutes.
Oh, 13 minutes. Oh, well, that's weird because I've seen people. Huh.
I couldn't believe it. And the other thing was, it was a complete sound vacuumed room. So it was one of these rooms with all the
that's why.
panels. Yes, but it was complete sensory deprivation of all aspects. It was,
yeah, that would make sense because these resorts that you go to, they'll slide food in for you, and then you can exercise. You can meditate, you can sleep. This is all you can do. But these, it's not, there's no, you can still hear yourself talk and everything. And you can obviously hear noise, or you could make noise or whatever. But it's like these people do it just to experience, have basically a spiritual experience and to see through the veil. Because I think it's on day 3 you can get there, but if you do 7 to 10, you're totally seeing through the veil, and your brain ends up making DMT, which is, I think fascinating. It's like what your minds can do, right? So,
Well, that takes me to another interesting one, which you might enjoy, is the 1970s RSI Institute. They did the remote viewing ESP. And I remember listening to the guys just the last few years speaking about the configuration that they had set up, and they call it a shielded room. And what it is it's basically a sensory deprivation room where the individual can focus on their own senses. And I actually think that's what that university had built, and they were allowing people to test just to see the experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there's a lot to do with the Monroe Institute. I have a lot of their work where they were doing all this, out of body experiences with hemi-syncing the brain. That's why I started to realize that the hemi-syncing was super important. And that you have to balance your brain. And this, Dan Winter says this: if your brain is balanced to theta, you can never be depressed. It's impossible. Okay, so there's obviously, very importance to this, and I think it's when you balance your Venus and Mercury and you become the hermaphrodite, you're balancing the left and right side of your brain, which is intuition, and the logical side being the left masculine side. It's balancing the feminine and male part of your brain, and it's like I think like education, like when you go into the education system, they have all knowledge in compartments, right? They make you think that this subject is one, this subject is something else, and they don't teach you that it's all one. And then your brain doesn't. It's too logical in your knowledge base. You're too logical. I've never been formally educated at higher education, just high school. So I always was able to make my way without an education and became very successful without an education. And I think. For some reason, I think I can just connect the dots a little bit because I haven't been trained to see it in separate, I see it all as one. And that way you can see the connection between it all, because this esoteric knowledge is in everything. It's in the periodic table. You go look at the Royal Society periodic table, they all have an esoteric symbol with each of the elements, and then it's like it's in math, like this azimuthal grid that I was talking about. There's also azimuthal numbers sequences that has to do with quantum physics. I don't have the mind capacity to understand all that, but I do know it all ties into Planck, which Dan Winters, with his brilliant mind, is saying is ascension. Okay, so Planck has to do with ascension, and they've coded it all to the Greek letters, and it all goes back to the letter L. It's the I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. Ophemian alphabet. Am I saying that right?
I think so.
Yeah, Ophemian alphabet. I listened to Dan speak about this, and what it's done. It's phase. I don't know. It's how they use the phase of the light, and it creates a shadow. And this is how they create this alphabet. This is how this alphabet was created. It's all with like phase going through a cone, okay? And so like the light going through a cone, and they create this alphabet. So it all has to do with frequency, light, and it's like math. It's like it's fascinating. So the esoteric knowledge is in everything. It's in the crystals, it's in the elements in the earth, it's also in the stars, it's also how they name the stars, it's in the cycles of the planets, and then again it goes into the math and the quantum physics, and then it goes into all our fiction, what we watch on TV. It's all in there. So it's like it's all one. Like, how can you separate any of it? Like, for me, it's like I don't see knowledge as separate. It's like it's weird.
But I think that's part of the indoctrination of this realm. And like I suggested a while ago, we've gone through a phase of ignorance, a phase of returning to the divine. And maybe I'm using too much biblical words, but really I'm meaning it's the recognition of the divinity in all things. And that would include the nations, the individuals in the nations. And I wonder if part of the divine lacing is to place all these wonderful things in all things for those that are a little bit more switched on, like balanced in the mindset. And as we start to see things in the true, we can actually, as in our life, if we recognize that it's not the time that all are coming that way, we can then play a part in lacing it while our time is in physical.
Yeah, I think it has to do with balance, because like even this labyrinthine, I don't know if you've seen these labyrinthines that these ancient cultures made, and if you walk them, it's like a round circle, and it kind of goes one way and it goes back, and it weaves back and forth, almost like a tree of life. It looks like, in a way. And if you make these little labyrinthines and you walk through them, you will balance your brain. If you just draw it on a piece of paper and you follow it with your finger, it can balance your brain. If you walk in a figure eight, lifting your knees up and using the opposite hand, tapping your knees, and walk in a figure eight and stare at one thing in the center of that figure eight, off to the side, and you keep staring at it as you walk in a figure eight, that balances your brain. So there's just so many things that we can do for our own well-being to stay happy and in bliss. And it's not being taught. Okay. So on a wide scale. And I think, some of this stuff, if we just put it together to help people, it's basic stuff. But if little kids were doing it, or and your kid's having a tantrum, and then you tell them, go walk and do this, it would calm them down. Like, so they learn to control their own emotional state. I think that's really what we're here to learn.
It's like what they used to say as well. The ancient Lemurians, they used to sit with everybody in a circle, and they would teach people in the circle unity, and somebody would walk either in the outside rather than the middle, so everybody was looking out to the outside. Excuse me. And of course nowadays, what is it? We all go into a square classroom, and we're a box inside a box, so we're boxing our mind already from the start.
Yeah, you have to be in a circle. The circle is the main thing. And in a fractal circle, if you can make it look like a rose, or if you take a shape, the pentagon, and you draw this out and you shift it 5 times, and draw it, it will look like a rose, which is what your DNA looks like from above. If you look down a DNA strand from above, which they never show us that side view, view of a DNA strand, they always show the side, the ladder. This is really important because the rose, this fractal shape, is where you can heal. You can also heal in a pyramid shape, a copper pyramid. You can heal. So this is the stuff that everybody thinks, oh, it's all cuckoo nutty stuff. Oh, really? Well, the point is, are you happy or you're not? And if you can say, I think the goal is to learn to control your thoughts. Every time you have a negative thought or a low vibrational thought, is to be able to recognize it and then neutralize it within 3 seconds. If you can master that, then you've mastered yourself. And therefore, when you can master yourself, you can catch when your ego starts to compare yourself to somebody else, or say an ego state, you're going, oh, why is that person got that and I don't? That's a low vibrational thought. So then you have to switch it and go, no, I'm on my journey and that person's on their journey. You have to always catch yourself. And then if you can do that, if everybody on the planet was able to do that, we'd have a beautiful place to live.
Oh, very much so. And I don't believe I've had a thought in at least 10 years, or at least a thought that I think could be of my thinking. And by that, I mean, I don't ever listen to my own voice in my head. There is no. And I sent a video to someone recently. Alan Watts explains it beautifully. He says that each thought is a consecutive action of a previous thought. So thus it's only one thing that you're actually achieving while you try to consider the thought. And I'm sitting there and I love it. I just laugh at that kind of thinking, because it really is true. I mean, if we just ignore it all and live ourselves, it's just living. It's
and I think when you can start to get rid of the negative or the self, the nasty chat that you talk to yourself, when you make that go away, then you allow the opportunity to have downloads coming directly from, you would say, the divine energy, and then you're being just a vessel for that divine thought. Okay, so I think that's what spirituality is really about. It's not about worshiping a divine being. It's allowing that divine being to be, come through you. And you can't do that until you make this other voice go away. This nasty voice that talks on your shoulder. I said that to a friend. I said, just make it go away. Just tell it to go away, leave you alone. And if you can speak to it and say, leave me alone, I don't want to hear the negative talk anymore. And then that's how
the one I describe it to some of the people I coach in All for Sync is, if they're there for you a lot, consider them as a cloud and just watch them float on by.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's crazy, but it's a very exciting time to be alive, because you don't know which way the movie's going to go. But at the same time, it's fun to guess the movie, and then just be the observer and watch the movie. This is not get caught up in the whole thing. It is exciting, but it's just time will tell and see what goes on. I just, this week will be very fascinating. And if nothing happens, then, like I said, I don't know what time, the only other date that I could possibly think of that ties into Christmas or Odin would be February 2nd. But I do think it all has to tie into Odin. I really do. It's it has to. And it's so perfect right now in the sky, especially with the, Saturn Jupiter conjunction as almost like the Star of Bethlehem. I just can't see it not being the epiphany.
Well, just to play on some of the things that I've written a year ago, and to help with predictions, I didn't go out and make this will happen predictions, but a year ago on our website, allforsynchronicity.com, we posted the article speaking about the grand conjuncture, and the thinking I did at the time was, there is a pattern that occurs in the 19-year cycle, and I think you've mentioned this as well, but the pattern that's visible is the fact that we've had, and we'll go to the 40s just for a little bit of fun. So we had the war in 40s, and then jump to the 60s. It's around about 19 years. There wasn't anything specific in 61, 60. It occurred in 63, obviously the Kennedy. So it's round about a little bit while after. And then we jump again to the 80s, another 19, 20 year-ish. You have the HIV, Freddie Mercury stuff and all that kind of stuff that came out, and that kind of defined the future, even though we know that HIV's still never been found yet. It's actually an aid. And then if we jump to 2000, well, we had some interesting events happen around about then. And if you jump to now, yeah, exactly. And if we go now, we're looking at 2020. So already we've had the jiggle, and that was the reason I was highlighting the article. And it wasn't until I got to a point in this year, I was looking at the Kepler's cross, and I'm going, there's something really significant about it. And that was when you, with the Mobius strip and a few other pieces, was kind of shining brightly, going, there is a significant highlighter, and I don't know what it is. So going back to what I was saying a second ago for yourself, the recapping, predicting that something can happen. It might not happen for a few more years, but the markers have been shown, and that's the interesting thought.
Yeah, but I think it has to tie in with Trump.
For sure.
Yeah,
Trump,
so if Trump just disappears, like just goes away, and Biden wins and nothing happens, it's all for nothing.
The other one that could happen, maybe one of these stage actors gets knocked off, and then the Trump comes out later and goes, "Gotcha!"
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I think. I don't think he's really going to get hurt. I think it's just going to look like it does. And then, then somehow they play a trick. Yeah, exactly. That's what I think. I think something like that.
We all know that the Secret Service makes sure to have stunt doubles, and it's lookalikes so that they can put them in places. Yeah. So there's a possibility of all things.
Yeah, somebody even sent me a picture just recently of Trump and Melania, and it doesn't look like Melania at all. It's like, and he sent it to me. He says, "Do you think this is Melania?" I go, "No."
It's the same as the Queen. I've been saying this, oh gosh, since my 20s. She gets younger every year.
I know. Exactly. It's funny. It is.
I think she left 20 years ago, and they just keep taking someone new in. I don't know.
I know. Yeah, it is. It's funny. And then I found this pic. Okay, I have to show you this pic. I found a pic online. Oh, do I have it here? Where it's this man walking towards this portal.
Oh, I think you did show it to me.
Oh, I did show it to you. Yeah. And it has the 3 wise men in it. Right? Yeah. So it's just crazy. I'm just like, how the heck? It's like, it's just nuts.
We'll add it into today's episode's thumbnail. We'll use it. That's what we'll do.
Yeah. Okay, and then this is just really weird. I found this. This was when I was looking into the azimuthal math equations, and it all. Oh, hang on a second. I'm getting into some. It all ties into hydrogen waves, because everything goes back to hydrogen, water. It's like it's always to do with the elements, right? Like I don't have a strong enough science background to even talk with any knowledge about this, but all I know is that the fact that these cathedrals, that these churches were built on all these ancient religious sites, and then they decided to build them, all the Christian cathedrals, they used the same sites. And it all has to do with the aquifer of the water underlying, with crystals and acoustics. And I know there's people that have gone into these cathedrals, and the sound that's in that area of the building, when they chop the sound, it creates the cymatic, and the cymatic is what the glass windows are representing, the same shape. Okay, so this is really ancient knowledge, that how everything is all tied to the symbolisms being from sound frequencies, and Yeah, just everything. It's all to do with science. All this esoteric knowledge is science. It's what the real science is. So I was sending you this. This is just hydrogen wave function. I don't even know enough about science to even understand it. But all I know is this one I circled, it's called the dumbbell. And to me, this is kind of like a torus field, right? Where, it's like one field compared to another. If you want to say that we're going into the Mobius strip and we have to jump into one realm into the other. But it's just interesting that the number they have with this is 322, which is, skull and bones all ties into it. So I always find it weird when I find these little, like, little connections. I'm just like, okay, that number's there again, 322. And that's like, yeah. So it's your Freemasons knot. Oh, knock. Oh, yeah, right. The knock. Yeah, exactly. But it's also the skull and bones, right? That's their number for skull and bones. So it's all Freemasonry. But yeah, yeah. But I think these numbers are significant to do with science. I don't think it's just,
And the
yeah,
thing is,
but
right, they've taken it from the Alexandria library that they removed from
yeah,
history.
yeah. The Crystal Palace.
Oh, have you
Wow.
seen this before? They
No,
intentionally destroyed this at the end of a king's reign.
really.
Yes, that was the Queen's dad's show off effort with his wealth and his time of reigning on this land.
And they destroyed it?
Yeah, the only thing that's left now is the dinosaur statues, the park itself. There was you could say a fake disaster, but you may as well just say another Pearl Harbor here.
Wow. The Crystal Palace. And then it has the two towers, right?
It's also in the
Like,
shape of St. John's Cross.
yeah, there you go. Wow.
It's also got the
That's
two pillars
fascinating.
next to it, the
Yeah.
Freemasonic
Yeah.
controlling pillars for governance
Mhm.
over the St. John's Cross. I govern St. John's Cross.
Yeah. I do think the pillars represent Gemini. And when I started doing the research on Castor and Pollux, the two Gemini twins,
Here's
one's,
the other one. You're 322. You're looking at two pillars from the top down.
yeah,
Your hydrogen
yeah,
wave function.
yeah, yep, exactly. I know it's weird. It's like, yeah, I just think it's all tied together, and the two towers represent Gemini, and then that's of course why they did the 9/11 when the moon was on that Mebsuta star. And the thing is, it's like it was on the claw of the lion, like the lion was taking the moon, So it's like the sun is always represents the lion, and the lion was like the male dominant. I'm killing the moon, okay, and the moon is feminine, okay. So it's always like we're in a male dominant world, okay. So it's going to shift because the cardinal cross, the moon, Cancer's on its proper pillar, and the Mars, now it's Aries, not Scorpio, on the sun pillar. Well, in the fixed cross, Mars is on the water pillar, so the moon pillar. So it's interesting. It's just total reversal, but now the moon rules. So it's feminine rule. So it's going to be interesting, and I think the feminine is all about intuition and healing and, mothering and all that stuff. So it's going to be a different realm for people that want that reality. But then we also have the mutable cross, which is not good. It's basically Odin hanging upside down and ruled by Jupiter. I don't think that's a good. It's like total mirror of itself. I don't think that's a good cross to be on. It's the service to others at the detriment of yourself. And I think that's the vaccine smart city
Well, I
cross.
think it's been like that for the last so many. And here's my easiest thought that I think, and I could be wrong, and I haven't got the astrological view as yourself, but I think
Hmm.
up until the 2012, it's been self-service for the detriment of yourself And then I think 2012, Mayan calendar stuff onward, has been a period of, shall we say, those that are potentially awakeable to a state where they're usable and useful. And now here we are with this grand conjuncture. The end of that gets some people useful and usable. And we're now in a period where it's going through, you're all going to get the divine sight injected into you. And here's the other part, I think. Those that reject the acceptance, they're maybe going into the recycle aspect of our souls. And those that are willing and accepting, then that's the change that we'll see. So the likes of, and I don't know how the I don't want to use the word elites, but let's say the faces in the media, I don't know how awake they are, but from my perspective, it looks like some of them are really sleeping. And the guy that wrote the Grand Reset, I mean, that shows that he's definitely sleeping. And then if we take the Queen's son, he speaks about it being overpopulated, and the Queen's father, obviously, the Queen's son's father, he speaks about it being overpopulated. Clearly, they're dumb and blind, because you can never be overpopulated. We would have to be jumping over each other if we were fucking overpopulated. But the future is all about yeah. But I think the future is that we're going to start seeing the truth, and those that were in the dumb state, they're going to be gone for the next cycle, while all of us enjoy the divine cycle.
Yeah, I think so. I just don't know how they're going to pull that all off unless there is like a parallel universe going on. It's either that or we're still here and we're creating our own divine reality while they're all in their little bubbles and getting vaccinated, and they're separated from us.
And work themselves off to an early grave. And that's what I think is going to happen. Exactly. And some of them may not be able to come back for a great long time,
But for some reason, I really do believe the children, ascend to this higher frequency. If you just are around children these days, they're in a complete different mindset. They're very at bliss. They're not stressed at all about any of it. They're just kind of like hanging out and waiting, and I think they know in their souls something's going to happen. So I'm just, oh wow, that building was fantastic.
Just sharing the last of the Crystal Palace, and I thought with speaking to Crystal Tyme, I thought
just amazing.
But just throwing out that, and that goes back a long time here in England, and I really wasn't meaning to distract you, but while we are distracting you, let's play a little. Yeah, let's play a little bit of fun. So first of all, you'll remember I sent you the last time a cheat sheet just about our interview, what we could talk about. And on the cheat sheet, there was something from a famous interviewer called James Lipton. And he was looking at what he could ask actors prior to them exiting an interview. And he was like, when he was setting up his persona, he was like, I've got to find something good. And he did. He looked back in history of other television presenters, and he saw a couple of cool questions, but then he changed it because it suited the actor studio presentation. And when I thought of the opportunity to interview you, I was like, schmuck, I need some good questions. And I did. I went and found one, but here's a question for you, and not to go into them in a big way, but there was something in there which triggered you to think of something else, and it was the final question about the Pearling Gates. So I was thinking today we could actually ask you the questions and maybe find out if the Pearling Gates connection was a synchronicity for yourself in some way.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you messaged it to me, and it was when I was just researching the whole thing about the pearl, right? And how this Meissner effect of being a superconductor, it all ties into this Cheshire charge that has to do with protein and DNA, right? So, and Cheshire cat, the Cheshire moon, is a smiling moon that the Cheshire cat has on it. And I know it's all about Alice in Wonderland, okay? This whole realm that we're in, we're all mad here. It's like this whole realm, nothing makes sense, right? It's you're either born with that sense when you're young and you realize it, or you just play along and you think everything's wonderful and everything's normal, but it's not normal. Nothing's normal here, you know. It's like we're on a wheel that we can't get off, and nobody's. It's very hard for people to be happy, right? But then you messaged me and you said pearly gates, and I was like, oh my God, the pearl. Of course, your body has to become the pearl to get through the pearly gates. You know, and so it was like I forgot. Well, I just wasn't in my mindset about the heaven being the pearly gates. I just haven't heard that terminology for a long time, so it was like really triggered me. And then I'm like, oh my God, that's it. But then there's this other funny thing with the cat and the owl. I don't know if you remember that nursery rhyme. There was a book that my mom had gotten me, and it was called I don't know, the cat and the owl or something. And it was like, I remember in the book that the cat had the pearl necklace on. And I was like, you gotta be the Cheshire cat. That's what it is, you know, and you got to be wise like an owl. And they get married, and they're in a boat. Of course, it's always about the ship, right? The ISIS ship, and they're in this boat, and they have their pot of honey. Well, the honey is like, you know, the pot of honey is right on top of the ship in the sky. There's Carina's ship, and then right on top is it's called Pyxis, and it's a constellation that is a honeypot. So when you go in that ship, you're gonna get your they're gonna collect honey.
And you're the honey.
Yeah, you're the honey. You're the honey and the milk. Yeah, exactly. I think it's that. Yeah. So I'm just like, no, thank you.
So that's a good synchronicity coming to shine at you, and it's interesting how the divine talks in these ways. You know, using the synchronicities. That's one of the chapters I'm going to have in the book. And I don't mean to go back pitching my book because it's too early to pitch it, but. It's amazing, these divine highlighters that we get, just an individual self, and then we get a friend come along and go, a weird question, and in the questions the other highlighter.
Yeah, I know. Well, it happens on Discord a lot, right? Because you know, because you drop something, right, and then somebody will see it, and then it goes into their consciousness, and then the next time they see that, when they're out, you know, searching and digging, they'll see a connection, and then they bring it back to you, and then you're like, oh my God! Then everybody gets like a little zip of high off of it, right? Because you're like,
adrenaline kicks.
You know, you get like a little adrenaline rush. That's what's so fun when you connect dots, and especially when you get confirmation from other people, you know. So then you're like, oh my God, we're creating the hive mind without being hooked up to anything, right? It's really the divine hive mind, you know, which is like, it's just brilliant.
Which takes me to one of the things I said to someone else in the community. There is only actually one mind. It's the fact that we believe we've got a separate one is the delusion of the illusion.
Yeah, exactly. It is. Well, my friend that lived with the Druids, he said that the Druids told him that our souls are so big that they're almost like shards of crystals, and we're in multiple parallel universes, all, you know, and they all will collide at the end of the great Platonic year, and then you end up having to see your other yous. Okay, so you're going to see your shadow self. You're going to see the other side of you, and then you join, and then, you know, you're basically, your other selves are helping with you right now. Like you're all on, you know, trying to connect to each other. And you see this in the movie Oblivion that Tom Cruise is in. He ends up fighting himself. He sees himself. So this I find amazing. But it was just funny that the Druids had told him, my friend, this. So I was like, oh, okay. And the Druids also told him that we were a crop. Okay, so I was like, this is part of my research. Like, you know, somebody just tells you this, and then you start to kind of go, okay, let's see if this plays out. Like, if I can find the connections, you know. So anyhow. It's all in the sky, really is. Yes, people just, you know, we never had the software before to know the sky. You can't even, if you just go look for a picture of the constellations in the sky, like all of them together, you can't find it. They'll only show you one, you know, or they'll show you the stick figures. They don't want you to see the characters in the sky.
It reminds me, in one of the ancient temples in Egypt, there was, and I think it was the Cleopatra period of time, and there's a temple where they actually studied all the stars. And now, for me and you, what that temple effort had done in the ceiling and the walls, they had discovered that there's 365 days. And if it wasn't for their work, we would still be running the old calendar of 360 days.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I know I looked at some of these ancient, I found, it's hard to find good pics of them. I think it's called the Denera. Anyhow, I've ended up finding it and got it down where you could really see the constellations. And what's weird is there's always in the center, they have Antlia, which is the wind pump. They always have that one in the center of their zodiac. And so I was like, So, when I started researching that constellation, it means the wind pump, the great wind. Okay. Which also happens if you go back in history on January 6th. You have to always go back to the history because history reloops itself on the days. Okay. Way, way, way back on January 6th, tons and tons of kings have been crowned. There's also this, they just happened to mention that there was this big wind in England, in Ireland, and it was called, how did they say it? They said it was, there was a weird word they used. They said the big wind manifested, or there was they used a word, and I was like, what the heck? It was just so like literal, the way this word was. I'm not sure if I got the word right, but they called it the big wind on January 6th. And with these ancient cultures, this wind constellation was always in the center of their zodiacs. And I'm like, somehow there's going to be a big wind, and Trump did say, remember, oh, I prefer the Gone with the Wind movie than the Parasite movie. Remember him saying that when Parasite won the I don't know whatever it won. Yeah, he won the Parasite movie, won one of the awards, and he came out and said, "I prefer the Gone with the Wind than the Parasite movie." And everybody was like, "What the hell is he talking about? Like, is he nuts? He's a lunatic, And like, I knew what he was talking about because it was Antilla. It's Antlia, sorry, Antlia constellation. It's it's a wind pump above the ship. So yeah, I think there's going to be like a swirling wind. That's what the mythology is saying. Whether it actually happens, it's just weird that he's king of the north. And all the symbolism of the spiral. The spiral. It's like a wormhole.
So maybe for that day, for a confirmation, maybe look out for a hurricane or some sort of announcement of weather and wind.
Yes, high winds or something. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's like, it's just weird.
Hey, here's one. How about they name a storm that's arrived? I wonder if there'll be a symbology appear.
Yeah, well, they always do this symbolism for the hurricanes, right?
Yeah.
It's when Trump went down to Puerto Rico and was throwing those, what was it? Paper towels at people and the scrolls, and it was, I saw it as he was throwing scrolls out to people, and that all tied in with the eclipse that went through. That went from, did you see about the Space Needle? It went from the Space Needle, right? That eclipse went from the Space Needle area up in Seattle all the way down to Puerto Rico, and then he went down there for the hurricane later on, I think in that year. But that they're mapping where the eclipse went. Now, did you see a Christmas Eve the Seattle Space Needle? What they were doing there?
No, I don't think.
Oh my God! They took the Seattle Space Needle, which the Seattle Space Needle represents the harvest path. Okay, these two eclipses that go through the United States are the two different paths. One is the harvest, which went from Seattle down to Puerto Rico in 2017. The one in 2024 is the ascension path. It goes through Phoenix. They both go through St. Louis, of course. And then it goes up to Montreal, which is Mount Real, which would be like Mount Zion, and then, and if you go through, I did a video on it, and it's like all the towns are all representing the two symbols. But the Space Needle up in Seattle, I was like, okay, there's something going on with the Space Needle. And because after I did that video, Melania Trump last Christmas had the Silver Gate, the Space Needle, and the Golden Gate Bridge on her Christmas table for decorations. And I was like, oh, of course, it's all about the sky, right? But the Space Needle. So of course, this New Year's, of course, they had to do something. They created a DNA spiral all the way up it. They created the Lotus. It's a big, huge, like plasma, like neon lights kind of shooting off of it. It's spectacular. You have to go check it out. And of course, it's plasma looking, because I do think this event is like a big plasma wind tunnel coming. That's what that's what the symbolism is showing.
Click a button. There we go. Obama, when he was in office, he did something for government buildings to be protected from UV plasma bursts.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. And yeah, I remember on, was it on the Empire State Building? I think he had these weird things going up. Like one was the Cali, Cali, and everybody's freaked out because she had the big tongue hanging out, and it's like, she's all about the event, right? The Cali, and she's about the rebirth or death. She's a destroyer, but she's also rebirth. And then the tongue hanging out has to do with yoga, with the breath of fire, because this all helps with ascension. So, it's like, it's interesting. People have different reactions to different symbolisms. And, a lot of people see that symbol and they think it's like satanic or something. And I'm just like, whoa. You guys got to dig some more, people. Every symbol has a duality.
It makes me think of that famous music band, and you'll get the name quicker than me, but they were always dressed up because their parents didn't want their parents to know who they were.
Kiss?
Yes. Remember, they used to do that symbol with the tongue hanging out as well.
Yeah, the tongue hanging out. Yeah, exactly. They used it then. I remember my sixth grade class photo when I had a Kiss shirt on. That's how old I am. It's but it's weird. These things are all like kind of they kind of little markers, to remind you, like, you were paying attention to that at one time. You were, and I think it's done like that psychologically to see if you awaken. How they kind of created it all through the timelines.
I think it's a bit of the divine as well. I mean, there's the gematria thing. I've now watched it for as long as I can think of, and there's no way that it's just people doing it. It has to be a divine layer of conscious interaction.
I don't know about that yet. I'm not sure how they're, or it's just the people that are in the music business and the movie business, they know all this information, right?
Yeah, but so the Bible itself is gematria, and if you go back through even some of the Sanskrits, there's gematria available to show itself in there as well.
But I think the esoteric knowledge has always been here. I think it came through from the last time the Great Year happened, like 24,000 years ago. I think, the people that survived knew it. And then, somehow it was hidden, or like it was like, no, we're not going to let people know it. I don't know. It's like...
That goes back to what I was suggesting earlier with this time that the God Eye recognizes all in each other and a time that it doesn't. And when it starts to descend, shall we say, as recognition of all, it knows it has to do certain actions, so it sends out all the eluders to do their task, lace it, ready for it to, and then there's a level of degree where it can never completely separate. So there's obviously one or two, maybe 144,000, maybe, always working, and never less than that number. And at some point, when the divine eye starts to look at each other, it changes from just the 144,000 to the rest, and therefore it's a collection. And I'm just theorizing, there's no proof to this.
I think it's all done to get us all together at one point. I do think at one point we'll all be on the same page, but I think some of us have to pay the price for not having the love in our hearts for the other side.
Well, I think the price is lack of attendance in the divine loop. So maybe they have to wait a loop to return in the darker side loop to re-prepare another attempt.
Yes, I think so. I do think that the souls that don't make it through this time have to live exactly. It's just weird how the math turns out. Like on an average 25,000 year cycle, it takes 360 years on average of 72 years for a lifetime. So it's just weird. It's a circle. We're on a circle, but you need to do 360 lifetimes to get back. It's just fascinating to me how.
And you know my numerological connection to 9. It's been an amazing thing and pointing at me my whole life. And there's you bringing it to 72, 9, and 369. It's amazing how.
Yeah.
And I've seen the 9 symbolism in many things throughout my life. It's so interesting to be.
Oh
yeah.
It is. I think, you know what I think 9 really is? It's golden ratio.
Of course. It's the
right?
As I've got in my book, third time in this one, the tetrahedron. It's the toroidal force confirmation. It's the 5 elements being combined and disassembled. And the disassembly, well, you just take 360 degrees of a circle, and everything can be put to the 9. And in the circle, every shape can be formed. And even if we overlap a circle, we can visca piscis. And if we visca piscis it, we see the God eye. And in the viscous piscis, we see the shape of the eye, which is the God eye. And if you can see that, then you see the God eye in each other.
I think that's the doorway. I think it represents a little bit the doorway. This kind of Vesica Pisces, the doorway is the eye. Yeah, I do believe that. It's fascinating. Then you can get the triangle in there, right? Too, right?
Of course, the corner, and then, of course, amazing. The apple of my eye.
Yeah, exactly. I know. But the apple is the choroidal field. It's the friggin' big apple. It's like the donut, right? It's like it's crazy, and then the Apple computers, and they have the Apple bite out of it. You're like, oh my God,
We've just finished my book in an episode. There's no need to write it anymore.
I know.
I'm only joking.
But bizarro, because it's like it's everywhere. Once you see that it's in gematria, like gematria, but then geometry, and then math, and then science, and then the language, the written word. It's like in the Bible. It's like it's in the color spectrum. It's in it's like everywhere. You're just like, what the heck is going on? What are we in? But there's I think it's when you start to see that it's all divine. Like everything's divine, right? Yeah, that's what it is. Even the politics, it's all divine.
I think our next, and I don't know the predictions per day, but I think our next, and I've been saying this for a wee while now, I think our next decade is watching the mountain move. So literally at the beginning of the year, I said to all the members, I says, guys, this is the decade, this is the year. You command the mountain to move, it shall fall to the sea. You must hold the faith. You must go strong and boldly. And I do believe that we are entering that time where we can watch those that had no faith move that bloody mountain.
Yeah, it's really sad that people don't have the faith. And even the mountain. When you say mountain, I'm thinking of the Etna volcano.
I know.
That ties into Pluto. That's Pluto. That's the father of this realm. The Disphata is Pluto. He's here, and he represents his 4 horses come out of the volcano of Etna.
The amount of synchronicities I had between, and I've intentionally took time off from community work. I've been writing the book. I haven't stopped. I'm over 100 pages.
Awesome.
And I've shut off receiving information from anybody. I literally put myself in a hole, and then I would change the TV, just relaxing, mountain. Disbelief or something like that, and the amount of signs that I had just in a couple of days period, I was chin on the ground.
It doesn't stop. They just keep coming, and it's like, okay,
it doesn't matter which hole I jump in, they find me.
I know. I know, it's just nuts. Oh my God. It's just fascinating. It really is. It's an amazing time to be alive. And I'll just have to, sit and be the observer, keep watching all the symbolism show. And, the next couple of days should be very, very, very interesting. That's all I'm saying. You got to remember the Epiphany is on Odin Day. It's on Wednesday. And that's the day of Odin's wild hunt, right? So this is all aligning. And then of course Trump is doing his rally
Wild
on Moon Day.
protest.
Well, the day after, it's called the day after. The reason they say that on my calendar, the day after, it means the day after New Year's, which is weird that they have it down as the 4th, right? Because you think it would be the 2nd, but I guess it's the first day of the week. So they're calling it the day after, but that's Monday, Moon Day, and Trump is the lion. So on Moon Day, the sun is going down. That's what I think. So it's like.
Did you see the picture I shared with the guy standing on the street with a cardboard cutout?
Yeah, but I didn't read it all. What did he say?
It's a must read. Let me find it again if you hadn't.
I know I have it here. Only 2 days till the winter solstice. The joy and relief that it has started to stay light longer is real celebration that takes place on December 25th. It takes 3 to 4 days to notice. Yeah.
That's another interesting one. The fact that someone would say, you won't know it until days after.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was just a stranger on a street.
Yeah. It's weird. And it's like, I wonder what town he's in. But it's like 3 to 4 days. It's
Manchester.
Like 3 or 4.
Manchester, Aberdeen. Manchester, England.
Manchester. This all ties into the River Dee. You know the River Dee?
Uh-huh.
Do you know that river?
Yeah.
You need to look at I've done a little digging on that. That's a very, very important river. And it all ties into John Dee.
And much more.
Yeah. So
even ties into Mary.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you wanted to look into the D, look into Mary Coulter.
Okay. How do you spell that?
I'll write it to you later on Discord. I'll do it now, so you got it. But that's another amazing connection. Actually, I think I was telling you in the last episode, there's the Knight Templar in this town that I'm in, and that town I mentioned there, that's the town they went to, Mary Coulter. And it's another one of those like symbolic piece right in front of everybody. Yeah,
I really like it when they tie it all in to the rivers, okay? Because the rivers have huge, well, not just the history of the rivers, but just their locations and the Kingdom of Gwynedd, the River Dee. It's all tying into Wales is like so much. Snowdonia. This place, because this is where, the English couldn't get to the Welsh, right? They all went up into Snowdonia, and that's why they couldn't, control the Welsh people. But they genocided the Welsh people's language, and this language supposedly decodes the hieroglyphs, and not the hieroglyphs, the Egyptian cuneiforms. So it's like, it's just
one of the most interesting things I find in the UK is, you're speaking about the Welsh language, but Wales still has all their signs in Welsh or Squelch, and the Welsh are very fighting for their language that they feel is that, but really it's only been given to them for so many 100 years. But here in Scotland, we have a language which isn't mentioned, isn't even taught in school, and is so ancient that when you speak it, it's like speaking Hebrew. And it's called Gaelic. Yeah. And they don't want to teach Gaelic because of the connection that it could bring and the enlightenment that's sitting waiting to be unfolded. And I think there's some schools on the west coast of Scotland, they've started to fight to bring it back and bring it to the school level. That's the difference.
Yeah, but I think it heals the body.
I believe it could, yeah.
Yeah, because I think it has like the resonance of the sound in these languages heal the body. It's just interesting that you just pull up this river and it goes back to Castle Dinas Bran. This is the name that they used in the Game of Thrones. The Bran was the one that became the king. Okay. It wasn't the King of the North. The King of the North didn't become the king. It was Bran. So it's like they're telling you, like they're using the symbolism in these shows, but it all ties back to these ancient, mythologies that go through these lands, these ancient lands. I'd love to go back to Wales. I told you I go on Google Earth and I
Yeah.
drive around Wales because I just feel like it's my home, because I'm Welsh, and it fascinates me, just these lands and the histories in these lands. It's like, what a friggin', it's amazing. Just lying on the ground, you must get awakened. There's so much like information running through the waters, that's what
I've
how
met
I'm.
so many people escaping Wales because it's so not the way it once was, and the
Uh,
frustration that they speak of within. It's interesting, and I often say
yeah,
to them, I think that's more about the whole UK, and like we were saying earlier, I think that's been part of the divine ignorance, and I think we're on the way to the bliss, to the all in good. So even though they were frustrated in their circumstance, I think we're on the bright future now.
I think so, but I think people's DNAs are supposed to be on the lands of their ancestors. Is
Yes.
it, yeah, they call this river D the river of the goddess or the holy river, this river D, okay? The holy river, the river of the goddess. Yeah, so it's the goddess, that's the Virgin Mary again. Yeah. So anyhow, the whole thing is that this is what Dan Winters explains, that there's your DNA connects to the tribal lands. And so when you do mass immigrations from people from different parts of the world and push them to somewhere else, it rattles them. It's not healthy in a way because you're not connecting back to your ancestral memory that's in the lands that you came from and your ancient cultures, right? So it's like this mass immigration. It's not. I'm not saying it from a racist point of view. Don't get me wrong. I love all people, but I'm just saying it would probably more be beneficial for people to learn how to keep their own native lands healthy by learning how to make soil better by using some of these ancient sacred geometry. You can change the soils in places and stuff, uh, the chemistry of the soil, and so you can learn to like make your own ancestral ground healthy, bring it back to health. Would be a better thing to do for most people than to just pull them off and make them live in climates that they're not used to and whatever. It's not good for the body, I think, in the end.
That
So
reminds me on when the Europe was having all those people come out of, I think it was Syria and all that other places. One of my friends is somebody that holds tenures in unis, and one of their colleagues, they had invented a tool which could literally be made out of sticks and a stone and something else and a band, and they approached the French government, another government, and another government where all these refugees was sticking. And they says, look, this one tool used could work as something for their gardening. It would help them make their own vegetables, start doing this, start doing that. And the government came back, you ready for this one? We don't like your idea and it's no useful because it's going to make them settle and they'll stay on our borders.
yeah, I know.
What? We've got a solution for you. It's going to feed them. They're all going to be happy.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not about creating. They're doing it to create chaos, not to help people. That's why it gets twisted. You think we're doing this, we're helping these people. You're not helping them. You're not educating them to work their own land and how and feel empowered. You're
And you're
you're you're
removing their
uprooting them.
historical roots.
Yeah, it's all to do with history because your DNA connects to the memory in the water that's running through the ground. That's how this realm works. And Dan Winter said that they've done studies on it, where if there was a tribe, and say the aquifers was a disconnect, like because of the land, like maybe like it was a disconnect from the next tribe downstream, and these energies weren't able to pass from one tribe to another. Okay, he says then they fought. But if there was like a nice energized line going through, the electrical line going through underneath the ground, through these aquifers, he says then they got along fine. They've done studies on this. It's like they know, but they don't want us to know that it's so complex. We're just like batteries on top of the planet, but we're connected to the water underneath us.
It reminds me of a project I watched. I think it was 2015 or 13, and they went round laying ergon and something else, frequency sets. It was as if they took in many different stones and put them all together using glues, and I'm simplifying it, and then they placed them in certain places in their town to try and change the energy aspects of it. And then they would go through months of documenting any changes. So, like, was there a crime increase? Was there food shortages? Was there food abundance? And these kind of things. And that was studied and done in several places. And I know in America and a couple in Europe as well.
Yeah, I do think it has, if we understand this knowledge, that's what I'm saying, this labyrinthine and stuff, and, aligning, like if we understood where the water ley lines were, like if we use this, what is it with this, the divine binding stick,
divining rods,
yeah. So if you knew where they were, and then you could build like little stone structures, and then you could build them through sacred geometry, creating a pentagon. You would be able to capture a healthier frequency in that area, and therefore you would have be at more peace. And then if you're at more peace, things are going to come to you better. This is how it all works. This is how you manifest. You have to be at peace, but if you can create energy fields around you that help you stay at peace, then the things you want come to you. This is how how it all works. It's like we need to write a book on that, because it's like people say, oh, manifestation, oh, you just have to meditate, blah blah blah. It's a little bit more complex than that. We can do it from other forms. We can do it from where we place our furniture in our room. Yes, we can also do these stone structures outside and walk these labyrinthines, or these don't cost much to do. It's like if we just had a little booklet, we could say, okay, this is what people need to learn, and do, and more people did it. And then it's like Prague, the city Prague. They built it. That was an alchemic city. They built it all in a rose fractal shape, the whole layout of the whole land of that city. But then they got taken down, the alchemic people, right? And then the Christians took over. So in a way, Christianity prevented this knowledge from coming out.
Very much so, and I think Christianity's been perverted 2 or 3 times in its existence. I mean, as far as I can tell, I think I said it on the last episode, there's been at least 2 or 3 Jesus Christs show up in history records, and they've amalgamated it into one guy.
Yeah, I know. It's so complex, but the thing is, it's like we have to understand how to be in harmony with Mother Gaia, because it's like when we not just individually, like each person, and if we could figure that out by some of these ancient techniques, I think we could create like a grid system of harmony, especially because I've studied, like I haven't done enough of it, and I will do it more if I'm still around. Is that we will create like there's chakras through the planet, right? There's different chakras,
and it's well documented.
Mount Shasta, and so they all have different chakras. There's 7 chakras across the planet, blah blah blah. These are sacred sites, but I'm wondering if we use like geometry and stuff to align like those places, and kind of, what I mean? Like kind of, I don't know, there must be a mathematical way to kind of create grids on where you live or on your town, and then, you know, that aligns with the sky or aligns with these chakras on the planet. You know what I mean? Like there has to be some way of kind of like that we all join together and help ourselves as a human family to connect back to Mother Earth so that we can be in the same frequency as her, you know, and I don't know, there's something to do with all this. I don't know.
You're definitely tapping on some interesting stuff, and I remember when I studied the rampant lion, and you were mentioning the UK, but there's a roots to the rampant lion, and there was some interesting grids that showed up, not the ley lines, but the connectivity between the ley lines, and thus redistributed a new grid. And even in the diagonal format, and then when you put this over and expanded it the global scale, you would find that all Aberdeens, Canada, Scotland, somewhere else in Spain, I think it is, all lined up on one line. It's like, how amazing is this?
Yeah. But this is the stuff that we have to really study so we can manifest the world we want. And if we did it in groups, you know, it's not just praying, like it's not like doing group prayer and stuff. We're doing more than that because we're using the sacred geometry and the actual earth. And I think we need to, in a way, we're giving respect to the earth because we're using her to help us. You know what I mean? And this is what we're missing. This is the key we're missing. We're not respecting her. We're just like on her, just using her. We're not like
well, if we're getting this time that people are going to start seeing the divine in all things, or self at least, then perhaps we're going to find opportunities that we get extra helpers to ensue our information and encourage to them to go and inspire a spark somewhere and lead them on a path. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm just looking at this river. The estuaries are there's a Cheshire and a Chester. And I'm like, oh my God, Cheshire. It's like.
Should we make a stop on the video? Do you want to?
Let's finish it. We've been gabbing for so long now, poor people.